Welcome to the Learning Can't Wait podcast, a Full Mind production. At Full Mind, our vision is to ensure every child has access to an exceptional education. Each episode, we will be joined by pathfinders within and around the education space who are bringing about transformational change on behalf of deserving students. I am your host, Haley Spierbauer. Welcome back, everybody, to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. We have the incredible Jennifer Schwab, CEO of Entity Academy, joining us today. Welcome, Jennifer.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I'm so glad to have you here because it has taken us a minute to get to this recording date. And that's just really built the excitement.
Hey, happy to do it. And I love what you're doing over at Full Mind. So any way I can be supportive.
I really appreciate that. And I think folks will understand why I was really, consistent about trying to get this nailed down once they hear a little bit about what you built, why you built it, and who it's for. So why don't we jump in, and I'll start with my first question, which is, how did you come to be the personal and professional version of yourself?
Wow. I just have an ethos about personal growth. Just about anything that I do, I want to feel like I'm taking a step forward, not back. And I'm very good at saying no. And I actually learned that skill in spades during the pandemic because I realized no matter how high energy you are, there's just finite hours in the day. There's finite energy to really do great things. And so when I evaluate whether or not I want to do something, I'm like, is this a step forward or a step back for me? Like personally, do I feel like this is growing me? Does this give me joy? Do I want to delineate my personal energy into something? And that goes professionally or on the more personal side. I just want to make sure that I'm always taking a step forward.
Energy is finite, time is finite, all these resources that we attribute. Generally, when you see resources, you think about money, but all these things are actually translatable to a financial amount. So let's talk about, why did you spend your time on Entity Academy? What is it? Who is it for? Who are you serving? And why are you excited about doing this work?
So I've always had an affinity for impact-oriented businesses. And this goes back very early in my career when I worked for a big four accounting firm. I got incredible training out of school from doing that. So I'll always be grateful for the experience. However, I knew even back then, I was like, I need to do something that gets me out of bed in the morning and gets me like feeling like I want to conquer the world. And when I started to really look at all the options in the universe of things I could do with my time, I thought, what is going to really motivate me through the tough times? And it was impact-oriented businesses. So I love the way fiscally businesses are run versus nonprofits. I like to see efficiencies, best practices. I like to work with highly intelligent people that are all rowing in the same direction. And I know you can find that in both types of both business and nonprofits, but I like economies of scale that come with business. And so I thought, okay, if I'm a business mind, but also very impact oriented, how do I reconcile that? And the answer was social impact businesses. So I did one with the Sierra Club back in 2008, which was called Sierra Club Green Home. And that was all about teaching the general population in America how to go green in their homes. And then after I exited out of that in 2013, I took some time off and did a Fulbright fellowship in Israel. And during that period, I came up with the idea for Entity. And Entity just seemed like the right thing at the right time. It was all about like, okay, I've had a little bit of success. I feel pretty good about myself personally and professionally. What can I do next to really pay it forward? And the answer was, so many women don't have mentors early on in their careers because everybody wants to mentor you after you've had success. And I thought that that was a real opportunity to catch women in their formative years in the workplace. So we could actually get them to look at work as not just a paycheck, but a career path that allows for advancement and the ability to really reach the stars in any professional role they commit to. And so my thesis on Entity was, let's mentor women when they're just getting into the workforce, out of college or out of high school, and let's help them get ahead early. And yeah, they're not going to be the set that's already proven themselves, but they're a very important population to have them feel like they can advance, to help them through the challenging times when they may get passed over for a promotion, or they may get talked over in a meeting, or they don't feel seen or heard. And so I feel like this was like something I really wanted to dedicate my time to. And that was the impetus for starting Entity.
The first time I ever asked for a raise, it was because a woman pulled me aside and said, a man would ask for a raise in your position, and you should too. And
Right.
no one had ever told me that before. And it boggles my mind that had they not said that, I wouldn't have learned a valuable skill that I could use for myself, but also pass on to others.
Absolutely. And if you don't ask, you're not going to get it. That's really all there is to it. I mean, it'd be great if every manager or every CEO can look upon their staff and suggest it. But a lot of times it's either they're too busy to see the forest for the trees, or it's just easier to maintain the status quo.
Well, people in positions of power often want to maintain the status quo because they got into their position of power. But that's a conversation for another time, although it is tangentially related. So talk a little bit about how exactly you're executing on that vision, on that mission, right? Like you have this goal to be the network that provides proper mentorship and upskilling for women. How exactly are you all doing that?
Sure. So we started out in 2016 focused on tech verticals. So we originally were doing digital marketing, data science, cybersecurity, and software development. So that was the training portion of the hard skills that we offered. In addition, we do soft skills training and professional effectiveness, critical thinking, and business acumen training. And then we have the one-to-one mentorship matching. So it's a really comprehensive program to get women ahead. And we were focused on tech originally, but now we've also moved into the trades. And a couple of years ago, we were awarded and grants through the Department of Energy to help get women into solar jobs. And as I studied that, I learned that trades actually has less women than tech. So again, another great market opportunity. And Entity has always been great with messaging and building communities around verticals that are traditionally male dominated. So we thought, who better than us to make trades an attractive career path? And so that's been our journey as of recent.
That's really interesting. I wouldn't have known that about trades. I can understand, I could follow the logic in my head, but I wouldn't have realized that, so often you hear about the C-suite's lack of women and diverse talent. You hear
Sure.
about just generally it's specifically, it's women, but specifically women of color that are locked out of opportunity. So interesting to hear that trades too are impacted in the same way.
Yeah, and if you think about it, we have to consider the disruption that's upon us with artificial intelligence and be ahead of that, because certainly the workforce is going to be impacted in a pretty dramatic manner. And so in looking at the larger societal trend of artificial intelligence impacting just about every facet of life over the next decade, trades is not going to be going away anytime soon. Sure, even HVAC businesses and construction management, there's certain optimizations that can be realized through AI. But at the end of the day, you need a human to go on site. You need a human to come into somebody's home and wrench on their HVAC unit. That's just the reality, at least for now. And we want to see women pursue those career paths that are not going away. We've already seen a pullback in software development, especially with entry-level talent. Unfortunately, companies are not hiring nearly as many software developers. And I think we all are aware that code is already starting to be written by AI. And, where will we be in that particular field when AI machines can actually advise themselves on what code to write? It will be very self-sufficient. You really won't even need much human oversight. So we're mindful of those trends, and we want to make sure we are identifying them before they happen so we can advise women on career paths that are at least here to stay for now.
How are you approaching the upskilling with AI in the space? Are you touching that right now, or is that something you're not currently like?
Sure. So my team is working on a ChatGPT program as we speak to take our original writers collective, which was all about content creation, SEO, social asset creation, graphic design for the internet. We even added some narrative science. So if you're a journalist, you would know how to use certain AI tools very early on. We actually had our first narrative science program course back in 2017. But what we're doing is now taking some of our original curriculum and just layering on a ChatGPT edition or an AI edition that would allow students to not only take the traditional curriculum, but utilize some AI platform as their co-pilot. So they really know how to use those tools when they're going into the workforce. And we think that's going to make them far more valuable.
Yeah. I mean, right now, if you're not using AI every day in most jobs, you're behind because you can use a lot under the surface to actually optimize your work. I mean, I have memory issues because of my ADHD, and I have like a AI tool that records conversations and then summarizes them and puts next steps immediately into every meeting that I have every day, so that when I go back and I meet with a person again before the call, I can go back and refresh, because my brain's not going to recall that. I'm
That's
a mom of
funny.
2 kids. My brain doesn't do what it needs to do anymore.
Well, and that's a perfect example of using it as a co-pilot and a companion. You don't need to remember all of those things now.
Right. No, I don't. And honestly, it was a waste of my brain space trying to do it before. So
Right.
grateful
There's other things you should be doing with that brain space versus just memorization.
I'd really like the AI to fold my laundry and do my dishes, but we're not there yet.
Robots are coming.
I know.
Robots are coming.
This is something my kids
I mean, there is a world where we'll all have robot housekeepers in the future.
I know.
It's going to be so interesting.
My little boys at home, who we all share responsibility to keep the house organized and running and all that. They are looking forward to that day maybe more than I am.
That's funny. Yeah, well, it will be like a smartphone for your kids.
Yeah.
They're just going to be accustomed to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are definitely on the precipice of great change.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And it sounds like Entity Academy is doing exactly what women need to ensure they're ready for that change, both in the future, but also right now. I mean, when you go through the website, like for folks, it's entityacademy.com. But when you go through the website and you see, first of all, who are some of the mentors in your network and what their accomplishments have been, it's incredibly impressive. And you're like not saying that. So I think your humility here allows me to brag on it for a second. But then also like what you're offering to the potential students. You know, these are things. How do you become a student? Like,
how do you become a student? You apply, and we have an admissions team that goes through basically a number of questions with a student to make sure they're appropriate for the program. and that they have a real level of commitment. Most of our programs are 8 months long.
Oh, wow.
So it's quite a commitment, especially many women that come to us, they're currently working. So they have to show that they're willing to fit in about 15 hours, 20 hours of work a week on top of their traditional professional role. So that's one thing that we vet on. And then additionally, some students are parents as well.
Yeah.
And they've got to have a quiet place to really do those work sets, homework, to absorb the material. So we definitely vet students to make sure they're ready for it.
So Jennifer, everything I do, if it's not directly connected to K-12, I like reframe for myself in a K-12 space, right? So
Oh, do you really?
I
Okay.
do, because that's my context. So like when my brain is making connections and trying to make sense of new information, I've like lived, breathed, worked, done all the things in K-12 and around K-12. So when I hear what you're building, it is really connecting to me to what's the big conversation in high school right now, which is workforce development, future readiness, college and technical education, CTE, like all of those things are the big buzzwords in K-12 education today, because schools have realized that students need to be able to compete if they choose to go to college or not in the workforce. And they don't learn the skills at school to currently do that. So
that's absolutely true. I'm familiar with the K through 12 market, and I am also hearing that vernacular. So future ready, workforce ready, future proof, CTE, career and technical education. How do we get high school students accelerated on a career path? Do they really even need a 4-year education these days? These are all discussions happening in K through 12, which I think is fantastic, because as a CEO of an adult learning company, we see a lot of students coming back to us after they've already had 4 years under their belt, or 5 years, whatever it is, to go get a 4-year undergraduate degree. And their skill set is either irrelevant or they're not utilizing it in the professional environment. So they're coming back to us to get additional skills. So what if we eliminated the 4-year plan for, call it, probably about 75% of Americans? It really isn't necessary. Some roles, not only will they require an undergraduate degree, it'd be better if they went on and got a master's, and in some cases a PhD. I'm probably being generous saying 75% don't need a bachelor's degree to go that they can go straight into the workforce after high school. What can we do though to make sure that they're ready from a soft skills perspective, and also get the kind of curriculum they need in high schools? And the answer is CTE curriculum. That is absolutely the answer. The state usually funds it. There's a ton of grants out there available to K through 12 for CTE programs. And if we can get women and just the population at large not to have this weight on their shoulders that says, if I don't go to a 4-year school and get a 4-year degree, I am never going to make it in society. We need to change that narrative. And I think we will have a lot more people going straight into the workforce after high school if we can change that narrative. The rite of passage, which was really further exacerbated by No Child Left Behind, that narrative about a 4-year degree and how that's just essential to being successful, needs to change. And there's no better time than now to change it.
Yeah, you are not alone in this conversation. I've had a bunch of guests on talking about this exact topic, and how college education has really changed in value, and the evolution of how society embraces college education has changed dramatically.
Yeah.
what didn't exist before were opportunities with freely accessible learning pathways or low cost options for people to get the education they needed. Like, the big joke is when you watch Good Will Hunting is that, Matt Damon taught himself everything in college, which wasn't possible when that movie aired, but is very much accessible and possible today. I am curious. It's not the space that I live in and breathe in every single day, but I am very curious about how college and beyond education is going to evolve over the coming years. But I deeply believe in what you said here, which is that the upskilling and workforce development that happens in high school will really enable high school kids to have more choice when they graduate in 12th grade.
Yes. And, there is a level of maturity that I think you attain by going through a 4-year degree that, not every 18-year-old is going to automatically have coming out of high school. So that is something we need to solve for, because there's a number of things that are required in entering the workforce that don't necessarily need to have when you're in high school and you're relatively young, if you're coming out at 18 and going straight into a full-time job.
Yeah, I think that's true. I would also say that we haven't even touched on the price of college education and how exclusionary it is for historically marginalized, systemically oppressed people. So that's a whole other conversation for another time. But thanks for indulging me in talking about how entities work with women and their careers extends to the big conversation that's happening right now in K-12. I think it's really relevant to connect the two. And I can see really easy parallels between what you're doing today and the possibility for continued support of learners in that space as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's my life's work and I'm just passionate about this.
That's so clear.
Yeah. And you never stop evolving in this category. I'm sure you see that at Full Mind as well. There's so many pivots and changes and policy changes and Oval Office adjustments that impact this space.
Right.
I always say education, healthcare, and housing, they're very complex categories because of policy, regulation, funding constraints, funding opportunities. They just lend themselves to a lot of volatility. So you really have to be passionate about it to stay with it, stay informed, and make the best decisions for your students.
I imagine that as you founded Entity Academy and you've watched it grow and change and evolve over the years, you have really set yourself forward on continuing to be forward thinking. What do you think is going to be the most exciting kind of next phase of your growth and development?
Wow, that's a great question. Definitely, on that theme with trades, because we just started it about a year and a half ago. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty impressive lift to reframe trades. And this isn't just something we can do for women. This is actually for the population at large. That would probably be number one, though, is how do we reframe trades to be attractive career paths for women? How do we adjust to changes brought upon by AI? There will be a lot of job loss. There will be displacement. People don't want to lean into that conversation because it's frightening. How do we reskill those folks so their skill sets make sense for today's workplace? And how do we reskill them in a rapid manner? And that's top of mind for me.
Yeah, I appreciate you doubling down on that. Keeping yourself in, not that you're an inch wide and a mile deep, but keeping your focus an inch wide and a mile deep is probably what's led you to have so much success.
Yeah. You've got to be nimble in this environment. And a lot of times when you look at people's lives, it's defined by what they've done professionally. It gives them purpose. It gives them a reason to wake up in the morning. It gives them structure so they can build the rest of their life around that, whatever thing it is that they're talented at.
Yeah.
And, they have continuity and consistency of pursuing. And if we have this sudden disruption in the workforce where there's a lot of layoffs due to AI, we're removing a building block of what makes us who we are. And that needs to be addressed head on. I do think it will open up a lot of space for creative passions and pursuits that you may not have otherwise tapped into. And, I think that is actually a positive narrative that we can lead with, but we also need to be realistic that one of the cornerstones, especially in America, that makes you who you are and that provides you a sense of identity is what you do and what you do as it relates to work.
Yeah.
So that's
honestly,
something we're definitely considering right now. And I think anyone who's in a workforce development company needs to double down on this conversation.
Yeah. This is a perfect segue for me to ask you my final question, which is what advice would you give a woman starting their career today?
What advice would I give a woman starting her career today? I would say be open-minded, understand that careers that exist today may be gone in 5 years. Even more of those may be eliminated in 10 years. And so don't look at committing to something for a lifetime because it very well could be taken away from you. Look at it as you can have a really prosperous existence by living your life in chapters. And just because one chapter ends doesn't mean it's the end of you. It means there's an opportunity for a new chapter. So be open-minded to that.
Ooh, concise and incredible advice. I love it. Jennifer, thank you so much for sharing about what you've been building, why you built it, how it's impacting lives. It's been a pleasure interviewing you today.
Absolutely, Haley. And thank you for having me anytime. And let's keep the conversation going.
I love it. Thank you for everybody who tuned in today, and we'll get back to a new episode shortly. Thanks for listening to the Learning Can't Wait podcast. If you like what you heard, please rate, review, and share this episode. Be the first to know when we have a new episode by subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to be a guest on the show or have a suggestion for an episode, email us at podcast@fullmindlearning.com.